Deep in the heart of an ancient forest, where the trees stood tall and the air was thick with the scent of pine, a lone wolf roamed. His coat was a mix of gray and black, blending seamlessly with the shadows of the woods. His yellow eyes, sharp and wary, scanned the terrain for danger. This wolf had known nothing but hardship. The pack he once belonged to had been torn apart by hunters, their loud voices and sharp tools leaving scars not just on the land, but on his soul. He had learned to survive alone, relying on his instincts to navigate a world that seemed intent on breaking him. The forest, once a place of safety, had become a prison of solitude. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent him fleeing deeper into the wilderness. Humans were his greatest fear, their presence a reminder of all he had lost. But one day, a strange scent caught his attention. It was different, softer, calmer, almost inviting. The wolf's curiosity battled his fear as he crept closer, hidden by the underbrush. There, in a small clearing, stood a woman. She wasn't like the others. She moved slowly, her voice a gentle hum that carried through the trees. The wolf watched, his heart pounding, unsure whether to flee or stay. The woman sat on a fallen log, her back to the wolf, as if she sensed his presence but chose not to confront him. In her hands, she held a piece of meat, placing it on the ground before stepping away. The wolf's nostrils flared. Hunger gnawed at his belly, but fear held him back. He circled the clearing, watching her every move. She didn't carry a weapon, and her posture was relaxed, almost inviting. After what felt like an eternity, the wolf darted forward, snatched the meat, and vanished into the trees. The woman smiled. She knew trust couldn't be rushed. She returned the next day and the next, each time leaving food and speaking in soothing tones. Slowly, the wolf began to linger a little longer, his fear giving way to curiosity. He started to recognize her scent, a mix of earth and something sweet, like wildflowers. She never made sudden movements, never raised her voice. Over time, the wolf began to associate her presence with safety, a concept so foreign it felt like a dream. One day, as he ate the food she left, she sat a little closer, her hand resting on the ground. The wolf froze, his body tense, but he didn't run. Something in her calm demeanor told him she meant no harm. It was the beginning of a fragile connection, one that would change both their lives forever. Days turned into weeks, and the wolf grew accustomed to the woman's presence. He no longer fled at the sight of her but kept a safe distance, watching intently. She began to sit closer, always patient, always calm. One day, she brought a blanket and sat on the forest floor, her hand outstretched with a piece of dried meat. The wolf hesitated, his instincts warring with a strange new feeling, something he couldn't quite name. He crept closer, step by cautious step, until he was close enough to take the food from her hand. The woman didn't move, didn't flinch. For the first time, the wolf felt something other than fear. He felt safe. Her touch was soft, warm, unlike anything he had ever known. It was a moment of profound connection, a bridge between two worlds. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "You're not alone anymore." The wolf, though he couldn't understand her words, felt the sincerity in her voice. He leaned into her hand, allowing her to stroke his head. A bond had been formed, one that would grow stronger with each passing day. As the days passed, the wolf grew more comfortable with the woman. He began to follow her as she walked through the forest, always keeping a respectful distance but never straying too far. She named him Shadow for his dark gray coat and silent movements. Shadow started to show signs of trust, rolling onto his back, a vulnerable position, and wagging his tail tentatively. The woman, whose name was Alina, continued to bring food, but now she also brought toys, encouraging Shadow to play. His once tense demeanor softened, and his eyes, once filled with fear, now sparkled with curiosity and joy. The forest, once a place of survival, was becoming a place of companionship. Alina introduced Shadow to her dog, a gentle golden retriever named Max. At first, Shadow was wary, growling and keeping his distance. But Max, with his friendly demeanor, slowly won him over. The two began to play, chasing each other through the trees and wrestling in the grass. Alina watched with a smile, knowing that Shadow was learning to trust not just her, but the world around him. She began to take him on walks outside the forest, exposing him to new sights and sounds. Shadow's confidence grew, and with it, his bond with Alina deepened. One day, while on a walk, Shadow encountered a group of hikers. His instincts kicked in, and he bolted, disappearing into the trees. Alina called after him, her heart sinking. She searched for hours, calling his name, but he was nowhere to be found. Just as she was about to give up, she heard a faint whimper. Following the sound, she found Shadow trapped in a hunter's snare, his leg bleeding. Alina's heart broke as she carefully freed him, whispering soothing words. She carried him home, where she tended to his wounds. Shadow, though in pain, never once growled or snapped. He trusted her completely. Over the next few weeks, Alina nursed Shadow back to health. She stayed by his side, feeding him by hand and keeping him comfortable. Max, too, stayed close, offering silent support. Shadow's leg healed, but the experience left a mark on both him and Alina. She realized how much he had come to mean to her, not just as a rescued animal, but as a friend. Shadow, in turn, seemed to understand the depth of her care. He began to follow her everywhere, his loyalty unwavering. The bond between them was unbreakable, forged through patience, trust, and love. As Shadow grew stronger, Alina knew it was time to give him a choice. She took him to the edge of the forest, where the wild called to him. She knelt beside him, stroking his fur one last time. "You're free now," she whispered. "You can stay with me or you can go back to the wild. It's your choice." Shadow looked at her, then at the forest. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, to her surprise, he nuzzled her hand and stayed by her side. Alina smiled, tears streaming down her face. Shadow had chosen her, just as she had chosen him. From that day on, Shadow became a part of Alina's life. He thrived in her care, his once terrified demeanor replaced by confidence and joy. He and Max became inseparable, and the three of them explored the forest together, a little family bound by love and trust. Alina often thought about how far Shadow had come, from a scared, lonely wolf to a beloved companion. His story became a testament to the power of kindness, proving that even the most fearful hearts can be healed with patience and compassion. And as Shadow lay by her feet, his tail thumping contentedly, Alina knew that they had both found something priceless, a second chance at love and belonging.